Hola, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a Beyond the Mic, the podcast, Más allá del micrófono. My name is Francisco Romero, and here we are again with our new venture. And let me introduce you to Juan Alaniz. Juan, first of all, thank you for being on the podcast with us. It's been a while that I've been wanting to have you here with us in this new venture. First of all, how are you, Juan?
Doing well. Enjoying retirement.
You know, you say retirement, but the reality is that you're not retired. You're touching still a lot of lives. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you and have you in our podcast, because of all the things that you do when you say you're retired. First of all, Juan Alaniz, let me introduce you a little bit, but he'll talk more about who he is. Juan Alaniz, someone who I admire. He was El Capellán de los Astros en Español. He got his World Series ring from 2017. But also, Juan, former teacher, or still teaching, former basketball coach, tennis instructor. But tell us, who is Juan Alaniz?
Someone who's really interested, invested in marriages. This is what my wife and I, Josie, we do. We sit down with marriages and really invest in them, of our time, our talent, our treasure, so that the children can be blessed. Because that's the only way to bless children is through marriage. And I didn't know that. I've learned it. We've lived it. And now we're living an amazing blessing. And we want the same blessing for others.
Look, Juan, that's going to be our topic, marriage. But first of all, take me back to you and your wife when you first started. I mean, you don't have to make it long, but you're from Texas, from the Valley, I believe. But then you also went through your life in the industry of agriculture.
Yeah, la pizca, as they call it here in Texas. Yeah, we were migrants. We traveled to about 8, 9, 10, 11 different states. Finally, an uncle told my dad, come to California, and there's a lot of work here.
So you would do the trek, like el trabajador migrante hace, like the trek from the different cities, depending on what lo que estaba sembrado, depending on what you were,
right.
What they were
So
farming.
we picked carrots up in Lubbock area.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was terrible. In Friona, Alabama. We went up to Virginia, Washington, Colorado, Arizona, just different places wherever the cosecha was, and so we just followed.
A lot of people don't understand what that was, but it was a life of where you never settled, huh?
Never settled. We were in 3 or 4 different schools a year.
A year.
And you can imagine the insecurities. When you're young already, you're insecure, and you're going to a different school, and you're trying to make friends, and nobody wants you to be a part of their little clique. You know what I'm saying? And so then you're only there for 2 or 3 months. And then you move.
At one point in time, there was a bracero program that Mexican workers came and did the same thing. I think it was just along the coast of California, also Arizona. They might have, that program might have also been in Texas. I'm not sure, but it was the bracero program who did that. But also, as you pointed out, you're from the United States, you're from Texas, you guys also did it.
Yeah, and that was all my parents knew. Wow. My dad, Maximino, Dora, Alaniz. That's all they knew to do until we got to California. And then they were involved in what is called las cannerías, the canneries, where they canned fruits and vegetables. And to my dad, that was like heaven, man. You see, you mean I don't have to go and actually work in the field?
Oh, because it was a stable job.
It was a stable job. And so they were able to put us through school. And that's when I got involved with Little League Baseball. And then became an all-star, and then I got involved with, and I was a pitcher. Juan Marichal. Remember Juan Marichal?
Oh, of course, yeah.
The guy kicked his leg all over. They used to call me Juan Marichal.
Wow. Hey, but then you fell in love with basketball. Huh?
But baseball was a little boring for me, so I fell in love with basketball after getting cut in 8th grade. And then I started playing on my own, hours and hours and hours, and I ended up getting a basketball scholarship out of high school, the first ever out of that high school, the first championship, the first MVP of the Trans-Valley League, and then went on and played 4 years of college basketball at the NAIA level, community college level, and then Division II level.
So I can say that I beat up a college basketball player.
Yeah,
basketball.
When we played that one time.
Yeah. No, so that's amazing, Juan. Your story, it simulates to a lot of stories on both sides of the border, but that's amazing. So then you became, you went to school, a degree in education. What was your degree in?
Yeah, I got my BA in social studies with the PE minor. Then I got my master's in psychology, and I began to coach. I was an assistant coach, and then I got my own teams to coach in the Bay Area, Sunset High School, and then Riverbank High School, Johansson High School, and then Turlock High School, which is
the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs right here.
There's a story behind that jersey, huh?
Yeah. This is a story because this is where I finished, first of all. But Turlock High School has put out a lot of baseball players. Really very, very respected baseball program. And Tyler Soderstrom, who caught the last out, he was at first base for the Oakland A's this year. Their last out in the Coliseum that we used to go to when I was little for bat day and helmet day. You know how the little kids used to go to that? And it was amazing. And so he caught that last out, and he went to Turlock High School. And a lot of history with the A's, watching those championship teams with Vida Blue and Reggie Jackson and everything. And I actually shed a tear the other day. It's
sad to see. I mean, it's working in the baseball industry. You know, I always think of baseball and Major League Baseball as we're under one umbrella, that's MLB, and then the different teams are different teams, different departments, as if it was a company. So it was sad to see the A's leave the Coliseum because of all the success they had, especially in the early 70s and then in the late 80s with the Cansecos and so on and so forth. But it was kind of sad. But it's part of evolution, part of baseball, part of so it happens. But the memories still live there.
Great memories and the economies, those impact a lot of stuff.
It does. Now, how did you go from being a successful teacher, counselor, successful coach? Because you were a successful coach at the high school level, junior college level too. You told me your stories about winning championships and how you formed those players. So how did you get from there to where you ended up in Houston, working at a church and then becoming a capellan for the Astros and where you're at right now?
Well, I've been very blessed to do so many different things. But one of the things that really transformed my life is when I was called to be a pastor. So I had coached at 4 different high schools, small, medium, and then large. When I started at Turlock High School, it was a 4,000 student high school. And then it got split up between Turlock and Pittman. But then after experiencing the success at Turlock High, I got called to be a pastor. So I ended up pastoring at 4 different churches, 4 executive boards, and a church here in Houston asked me to come and start a Spanish service. So I basically started 4 Spanish services at these 4 different churches after not speaking Spanish.
Spanish is perfect. I mean, it is.
Yeah, well, I've had to learn it because I've had to surround myself with people who speak amazing Spanish. And you're one of them. So I learned by listening to people speak Spanish.
Juan, and then that church in Houston had a connection with the Astros, so you ended up going to do service on Sundays for the Spanish-speaking players. Huh?
Well, I the connection with MLB chaplaincy goes back to the Modesto Nuts.
Ah, okay.
And they had the Modesto Nuts, who were an affiliate of the Colorado Rockies.
Exactly.
And so I was a chaplain there. And so when I got to Houston, someone told somebody about me, and they gave me a call from New York, and they said, "We want to interview you to be the chaplain of the Astros." And so they interviewed me, and they made certain that I could speak and write Spanish. And I said, yeah. So we did that. And before I know it, after being here just a couple months, I became the Astros chaplain.
That's where we met you, Alex. And
and that's I met you in Trevino. That
exactly.
guy.
And the players loved you and loved your wife, because she also talked to the wives, and you became very close to a lot of them. And I know there's a lot of, I don't want to say secrecy, but there's things that you just can't say or divulge about players and so on and so forth. But you did a great job. The players really, really liked you, because we asked about you, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's okay." So then you're okay.
In my last conversation with Espada, and I can mention his name, he's not the manager, and the other players was, if somebody comes and talks with you and they never mention your marriage and your children, then walk away. Because that's the essence of who we are.
And that's exactly where I wanted to point out, because we talked before the podcast, and you stress that you want to talk about marriage, and now you're going to talk about marriage. And I want to say not a new chapter, but maybe a new role as a life coach that you are now, and that life coach message that you give is concentrated, a lot of it, correct me if I'm wrong, in marriage, and not only how to have a successful marriage, but the benefits of being a good marriage. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but the institution of marriage,
Yeah.
it's not only being married, but there's a lot of meaning to it, especially when you have kids and
Yeah.
the family around it.
Oh, yeah. And it's amazing what can be accomplished with an amazing marriage. You know, I mean, you and Larissa work together, right? Josie and I work together. And when you can go out together, and I've seen it with even in our own family with my daughter Kimi and Aaron, that's her husband, and then Sammy and her husband Sosa. They work together in music. They work together in everything that they do, and you can see the blessing that it represents, and it draws them closer because they have these things in common with each other.
And I don't want to go away from what we're talking about, but your daughters, they're in music. And the couples are in music, and you add that element to the marriage part of it and the aspect and working together. Because also in music, if you're not in sync, you're not a musician.
Exactly. And so that's why sports and music and these things, it's like we watched the Astros for the last 8 years, you said. They've been to the playoffs in 7 in the ALCS and 2 World Series championships. And that's what we witnessed. We witnessed these guys just playing off of each other, and they were fun.
You always come up with the term, of team. The word team. Yeah, we use it in sports.
Right.
Whether we're broadcasting baseball, basketball, football. But you also use it in marriage.
Right. I mean, we're Team Alaniz, Team Sosa, Team Eves. You're a team when you get out there, and as I tell them, you have a fan base, and that fan base are your children. And those children should be watching an amazing team. And so that's what we want to talk about today, building that team. If I may, I want to just start with an acrostic. It's called carne de res. What's carne de res?
Carne de vaca.
De vaca, right? It's beef. And so I use acrostics and acronyms because they're mnemonic devices or tools to help memorize things better. I use them in the classroom. And when I was called to be a pastor, the people who were coming to me were very, very unskilled people. They had a lot of gifts, a lot of talent, but they were unskilled. They just didn't know. Unskilled is they hadn't learned, for example, carne de res. What's carne de res? And carne de res, the R, represents reconciliation. You want to have peace and joy in your home, you need to live a reconciled life. That means that constantly you are reconciling. You're forgiving, you're asking for forgiveness, and you start all over again. And that keeps the relationship fresh, as opposed to, which was what my wife and I did when we first got married. We'd be mad at each other for months.
Hold grudges.
Yeah, for months. And I didn't even know I was mad. She didn't even know she was mad. And before we know it, it would explode. But no one had explained to me that word, reconciliation, is a healing word, because if you practice it daily and you do it immediately, then you don't hold those things that bog you down.
Now, in reconciliating, does that give you a spark to, like, you said start fresh, but again, it gives you a spark or energy to say, okay, let's plan again, let's do this again.
Oh, yeah, because how many people, I mean, this happened to me, I don't know if it happened to you, but you go to dinner at a nice restaurant, she's mad, you're mad, and the food tastes terrible. You don't enjoy it, you're not nice to the waiter, you know what I'm saying? It just ruins the evening. Exactly. But if you reconcile before you go to dinner, then you can enjoy the dinner or the movie theater or whatever you're going to do, But people arrive at whatever event they're in upset with each other, right? There's no peace, there's no joy. The E is a new language. I didn't know that. If you spend all your time looking for amazing things in each other, edifying each other, building each other up, as opposed to just looking at what's bad, you know what I'm saying? So if you're reconciling and you're edifying and you're looking for great things in each other and you emphasize that, and with my teams, we practice this. We reconciled before we got on the practice court or in a game, and then we built each other up. I said, hey, that's not a language we allow here. But people allow a language in their home that destroys each other.
Exactly.
Right? And so you have to practice these things. And then the last one, for carne de res, is the S, but in Spanish it's sabiduría de Dios, or the wisdom of God, which really says, because there's man's wisdom and then there's God's wisdom. Man's wisdom is you learn from your mistakes. God's wisdom is you learn from the mistakes of others. Exactly. So you should be asking questions like, if I was going into broadcasting a baseball game, I'd want to know the things I shouldn't do, so I don't have to go through a bad experience. So I would ask you. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
In coaching, my mentor, I used to ask him, it's okay, what shouldn't I do so I don't have to make the mistake and lose a game?
Exactly.
So you're learning from the mistakes of others, and that's sabiduría de Dios, or wisdom of God. But I can't fix my acronyms perfect sometimes, so I just use the carne de res. But that's what that is. And if you practice those three things, reconciliation, edification, and sabiduría, or the wisdom of God, you're going to have an environment that's very, very conducive to being successful.
Pues entonces Juan nos da podemos decir la receta or the recipe for a good marriage. But then for those of you who are coaches out there, same recipe that applies to a team.
Yeah.
O sea, you edify the team, you reconciliate, and then you get that spark back again, and you go out.
We were playing Clovis East in the Clovis tournament down in the Fresno area. And we beat Clovis East High School. We pounded on them pretty good. And after the game, I'm walking off the court, and I get a tap on my shoulder. And it was the former National High School Coach of the Year, who coached Shaquille O'Neal in the All-American game. And he tapped me on the shoulder, and he says, Coach, and this is the greatest compliment anyone has ever given me. He says, your kids are so fun to watch. They're a joy to watch play. Okay? But there's a significant coach here who said that.
Exactly.
Well, your children should be saying that about your marriage. Mom and Dad, you are just so fun to watch.
My kids always say that about me.
Do they? Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Do you narrate to your wife the way you narrate?
And
baseball?
You're so fun to listen to on the radio.
On the radio. She never criticizes. Huh?
No, never. Kids never criticize, especially mine.
But yeah, that's the carne de res that I always
it's a great
share
concept,
that.
and I mean, it's you never think about it. Sometimes you think about it, but not in that order. And then, but once you put it together and you explain it, then so give me an example. So you don't have to give me a specific example, but once you start coaching a couple and you talk about this, what's their expression or what's their reaction?
Well, they always tell me what I always hear. I've never heard this before.
Okay.
I've never heard this before. And which is the same thing. Whenever I got to a new high school, because I coached at 4 different high schools, or a new church, I explained these concepts to them. And I said, look, we're here to make you a champion.
Exactly.
This is what we want. You know what I'm saying? Having been a champion as a player, as a coach, and then I come here and I become a part of the Astros championships. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean,
and that formula applies even if it's not on that order, but it applies in order for someone to be successful, but also to be consistent on what they do and what they want, and don't, because sometimes you're going to find bumps on the road, but you don't go off the road that much. You get back in line. Now,
have you heard of GPS?
Yeah, it's a geopositioning system.
Yeah.
Is that
right? That's a GPS.
Uh-huh.
Well, I share with couples, with marriages, the GTS.
GTS, isn't that a fast car?
Remember that? Yeah. But this one stands for gifts, talents, and skills. Okay?
Means you got to give your wife a gift.
Well, no. Your wife has gifts.
Okay.
You have gifts. I have gifts. We all have gifts, which are things that, like in your case, your gift is the gift of gab. You know, you can express something like an Altuve home run in a way that it makes people emotional. I know I've listened to it when you've sent them to me, and I go, wow. I said, that home run don't look the same. You know? That without the narration, it's just a ball going over a fence. But when you add the narration to it, that's a gift. You know? It just blesses. Same thing with the talents that people have, okay, that you get to develop. Then you have skills, and this is where marriage is really hurt.
And we're talking with Juan Alaniz again in the Beyond the Mic podcast, and he's focusing on marriage in this conversation. There's a lot of topics that he talks about, but he's focusing on now on this topic, and how he can make it work better, how it can last for a long time. But go ahead on what you were talking. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted people to know that as a life coach, there's a purpose to it. It's not just a named life coach or hire me and pay me this. And there's a purpose to it. Go ahead.
Well, the purpose is, which is the most fair thing that anyone can ask of you or of me. Are you getting better? Are you growing? And that's the thing that we are in with the marriages is, are you getting better? Is your marriage better this week than it was last week? Yes. This month than it was last month. Is it better? And so the only way you can get better is going back to that word, skills. Because everybody has gifts, everybody has talents, but the skills are what's going to make you better. And somebody asked me and says, how are you going to transform the Turlock High School Bulldogs, okay, into a championship team? And I said, we're going to teach them skills. How are you going to give them confidence? We're going to teach them skills. And then we're going to practice those skills. Skills are things you can learn to do.
Exactly.
Right? And so that GTS is critical. And I tell people that when you get into coaching, which is teaching is a word, you teach. So you give the material to somebody and you share it. The coaching requires putting that teaching into practice, and that requires rebuking, it requires correcting, and it requires instructing. That's what a coach does. So when you only receive teaching, and a lot of couples that receive teaching, they've just never received coaching, and that's the rebuking, correcting, and instructing. And so we do that, and we explain to them that's where the skills are going to be practiced. And you know how practice is. I mean, I used to go down into the tunnels over there in the Astros before I go up and see you and Alex. And I'd get down there early, but it wasn't on my time that we were going to get together. It was on the players' time because the players had to go to batting. They had to go do the fielding. You know, they had to go get the right food in their stomachs. They had to do things in order, and even learning to eat right is a skill. I mean, I haven't quite learned to do that yet. So that you apply all that to marriage. You apply it to marriage. It's like people are trying to get into marriage without skills. So continuing with the word lead, as I was saying about edifying and building people up, that really gives you energy to do that as opposed to the opposite. So when you want to lead people, we listen to them, we edify them, and then the A of the word lead is asking them for permission to ask a question. If you can imagine this, applying this with a daughter or a son, especially in their teenage years, you've listened to them, you've edified them, and now you're asking them for permission to ask them a question. That immediately tells them, I'm being respected, especially as they're getting into young adulthood. They like that.
Of course, yeah.
You know? But in a marriage, it's the same thing. Honey, she's all fired up. And you go, honey, is it okay if I ask you a question? Will you give me permission to ask you a question? As opposed to just throwing stuff at each other.
Sí, porque te reseteas. You reset yourself, and then makes you think again, and it's like, wow, okay, let's start over now.
Yeah, and so it's a good thing to do because you're being gentle and you're being respectful.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's very important to apply that. Okay, so you got to listen, you edify, you ask permission to ask a question, LEA, and then it's the D. And what you want as a dad, or what a mother would want as a mother from their children, but especially in their marriage, is you want to have that freedom to come to each other.
Exactly.
Where you can then ask them to disciple you. Another word for disciple is discipline you.
Yeah, it goes either way, but it doesn't have to go one way. Exactly.
It's both ways, yeah. So there's times when I have to ask my wife for a recommendation on something, or I have a question about something else.
I've seen that all the time.
All the time. Especially about what to wear.
Exactly. On a podcast.
On a podcast. Because they don't want us to go out looking bad, because it makes them look bad. But we can't ever ask them, why didn't you put makeup on? That's a bad game. But anyway, discipleship. And you want your children to come to you and ask you, Dad, okay, I've got a big question here. What major should I get in college? Okay?
But one thing that with marriage, but with children is, for instance, it's hard to make them understand that you've already gone through this and that and that and that. And for us, sometimes the answer is so easy to tell them, but they make it seem like so hard they don't understand the road that we have already been paving to get there. And so that's a little tough because they sometimes it seems like they think they know it all. And
we were there.
And they think that you don't know it when you're like, I got a solution. But if you would only listen, it'd be so much.
But that's the idea.
Exactly.
Behind this is that because you've listened to them, they'll listen to you. Exactly. Because you've built them up, they'll build you up. Because you've been gentle and respectful, they'll be that.
So what I'm trying to say that this is a strategy to build everybody up.
Yeah.
Not to put everyone down, because that just makes it worse.
But especially in the marriage, because they're witnessing. And this is the thing, is children are watching their parents. Children don't learn from parents talking at them, talking down to them.
The action.
It's I like how you and mom engage. I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend. I'd like to know how I can do the same. But when they come from a toxic or dysfunctional environment, they're not going to learn anything from that other than to be toxic and dysfunctional.
And look for someone who's toxic and dysfunctional.
Right? Y por eso se casan con ellos. I mean, it's like, well, how'd you end up with that guy? Well, he's just like you, Dad. Right?
Not as good looking.
Not as good looking, but he's just like you. But that's the idea, is that they're seeing an example of someone leading them through their marriage, and it just makes that transition for them into their adulthood a lot easier.
What I take from our conversation is that even though it's focused on marriage, what you're giving us here is it can be applied anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
It can be applied even at your job, with your kids, with obviously marriage, because that's what we're talking about, but even just in life in general. Even if you just go to the store and you see the young lady or young man with the mad face passing the,
at HEB.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're always nice at HEB. They can sponsor us.
They can sponsor.
But you can apply that too.
Right.
Even little bits and pieces. Doesn't have to be the whole thing. But no, it's very good advice, and I mean that's what I take. I don't know if that was your goal, but I guess you were focusing on marriage. But if you look at it at a big spectrum, you can apply it to everything.
Right, and having been entrepreneurs, which is something I hadn't mentioned, what we've done also as a couple is to invest. And so we had 4 businesses in Southern California, and then we have some real estate and things like that we play with. But even in that, you have to apply it. In those businesses in Southern California, we applied these things there.
Oh, ¿qué son los businesses?
Well, California's a different animal, man. Let's not get into that. We've been having a good time. Don't get me started. But no, you have to apply it everywhere, like you're saying. Okay. I mean, I'm sure that your relationship with Trevino is a great relationship. I listen to it. You guys just play off each other. That's like a marriage, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it is. The word marriage isn't only applied between
No, exactly.
It's everything that you do. And so...
And we use it in business also. You're going to marry, this part of your business to this other part of your business, and then you're going to produce something else. So, the word marriage is...
and so that's why the ministry that I work through is M M Ministries.
That's what I want to talk to you. So that's where you're at right now, M M Ministries. Now, that's yours? You started that?
Back in 2006 in California. And the M stands for music, and the second M stands for message. So music and message, and that's where our daughters and their husbands come in with the music part. And then my wife and I, we have the message, but it's for marriages and for children. And so that ministry is the one that puts up the videos on YouTube where there's insights, making connections it's called, because people are disconnected.
Now, if someone wants your advice or hire you as a life coach, where do they find you?
They can go on YouTube. They can also go on the Facebook.
You want to give your phone number too? We'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll put that phone number up there. They can call. And, I've talked with people in Mexico, in California, in Florida, so different places via Zoom calls.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So we don't have to be in each other's presence. But
you can marry technology with with advice. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, Juan, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and you always give us good insights. And I remember when you went to our broadcast booth once, and we had Alex. We had him pray for a little bit. And he didn't want to, but he did. So it was pretty neat. And the other thing that I said, it's you're talking by example, because I've gotten to know your family. your daughters, their husbands, and it's pretty amazing what you guys have built as a family. So you're not just talking.
No.
You're actually. I've seen it firsthand. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. And for those who are watching, and Juan's advice, it's not just talk. It's actually he's put it to work, and your family is very impressive, Kaira.
Yeah, well, it's called testimony, and if you talk about something that you've never experienced, that's not going to have the impact. And it's like me talking about music. I've never experienced music other than listening to it.
Like Alex and I, he talks about what he experienced as a catcher.
As a catcher in the major leagues, yeah. So when he talks to me, I listen because the guy has an experience of having caught Valenzuela and Ryan. Can you imagine? Two of the greatest pitchers in Major League Baseball, and this guy was the catcher for them.
So
when he was talking with me about that, and then with you, I've seen the pictures that you post with Julio Cesar Chavez. I grew up watching the guy, and you actually have your arm around him. I'm going, are you kidding me? How would I'd love to do that with Julio Cesar Chavez.
It was a great moment.
Yeah.
But another thing that I wanted to express to you is that, we talked about all this, but your son-in-law, the one who plays the guitar.
Yeah. Man, Sosa. He only has one name.
Sosa. I was like so impressed, and I'm like, I want to be that guy. Like you play a song, and like he listens to it for like 2 minutes, maybe 30 seconds. And then he plays it exactly like it was. I'm like, I want to have him at every one of my parties.
That's called a gift.
It's called a gift.
You see, but he also has a talent. But then he's always practicing because he has those skills that he has to develop. So those are the things that we want to convey to people and say, you can do it.
And those are the things that build up a marriage, a family, and then a community.
Yeah. Then you're a blessing to, your local community, the state, the country, and that's what we want to be, and that's when I listen to your narration of a home run, that's a blessing to me, right? But you've blessed, how many fans have you blessed with that? No, and so if you just keep what you have and you never share it with the world, it's kind of sad.
And your daughter, they sing beautifully. They can. You can also find them on YouTube, huh?
They're on YouTube. Citizen Crown is the band, and they're there to support any kind of ministry, or even in the secular world, they can also sing the music for people, especially the 1970s, the best music in the history of mankind. Yeah.
I think the 80s was a little break dancing here and there. No, but Juan, it's a pleasure. What do you leave as we end this up? ¿Con qué dejas a la gente? What message do you put out there?
Well, the message is you do not have to struggle.
Okay.
You don't have to struggle.
Life's too short to live
with
a grudge, huh?
So whenever I got to my high schools, I got to Sunset High School, Riverbank High School, Johansson, Turlock, I saw players who were struggling, that were losing. They thought, we're always going to be losers. No. You don't have to be a loser. You don't have to struggle. The game of basketball is amazing. It's something that's supposed to be enjoyed. My responsibility, like I told them, is I know you love basketball. You just don't know how to love basketball. And I know people love each other in a marriage. They just don't know how to love each other. And so as a life coach, as a pastor, and you mentioned that earlier, that's what I do. Is I tell people, you don't have to live the misery that you're living. So.
And one last thing. Nowadays, at least I've seen it, or that I have conscious of for the last 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years, a lot of people are getting medicated for that. Can you help them? I mean, I don't want to.
We're going to have to do another podcast for that one because, yes, I have answers for that.
So and unfortunately, you don't have to be medicated.
No. Unfortunately, I met a woman. I'll just give you a quick little testimony. A woman who called me because a friend of hers heard me talk in Dallas. And she called me and she says to me, I went to the medical center. They put me on these depression pills. Someone told me you could get me off of them. Right? And I said, okay, talk to me. So she starts talking. I listen first. I got to listen to her story. After listening to her, I asked her a question. I said, is it okay if I ask you a question? And she goes, yes. Are you married? Yes. What's your marriage like? Boom. The answer came out. It all came out. You know what I'm saying? She didn't need to be medicated. She needed to be listened to and given an opportunity to get out of a very, very dangerous situation. When she got out, a couple months later, I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm not taking those pills anymore. And I'm in a lot better place." She was no longer depressed.
Well, we'll leave you guys with that. We'll leave you guys with that because... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but that's what it's important. People out there are making money off of people's pain. I sit with these people. Don't subject yourself to that. Get skills. Learn how to apply things that are going to be a blessing to your marriage and to your children.
Well, Juan, blessings to you. Thank you for joining our podcast. And here's a phone number where you can reach Juan. And, you know, I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah,
yo sé que doy mucha carrilla en veces, you know, with some stuff, but you learn every day.
Yeah.
And one phrase that I have been using the last few months is that todo suma, everything adds up.
Everything.
For the better or for the worse.
Well, you want to
but everything adds up, so you want to go the other way. You want to do it for the better.
Always for the better.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you very much, Juan. Again, my name is Francisco Romero with Juan Alaniz. And again, thank you for joining us in Beyond the Mic podcast. And Juan, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.